Good evening, everybody. I'm speaking to you from Atlanta, where I've been a guest at the Rotary Club today. At lunch, a lot of people who want to see closer relationships between the USA and the United Kingdom. But before we are free to do that, we have to leave the European Union. Now, the good news is that we know that Article 50 will be triggered on the 29th of March. Yes, sure, it's taken over 9 months, but it is going to happen. And in response to this, what do we get from our partners, our colleagues for the last 40 plus years in the European Union? Well, I tell you what we get. We get Jean-Claude Juncker, the president of the European Commission, being interviewed by the German newspaper Bild. And he's asked the question, was he worried that other countries might want to follow Britain's example in quitting? And Mr. Juncker says, no, Britain's example will make everyone else realise that it's not worth leaving. So really, what he's saying is that if we want to leave the European Union, they are going to be as nasty and as beastly to us as they possibly can. I have to say, in the face of such arrogance and unpleasantness, I wonder why we ever joined the European Club in the first place. I mean, if they're this nasty, let's get out as quickly as we possibly can. So the question is, in the face of Juncker behaving in this way, should we be prepared to just walk away? And I'm going to ask David in Putney that question first.
Hello, Nigel. Thank you for having me on. You're an absolute legend in your own lifetime. I'd like to say that it's irrelevant what Juncker said. In the politest term, he's a cantankerous moron. He does not speak for the other 27 countries. He kind of represents them as a sort of figurehead, but you know, the likes of Germany and France will want to trade with us, although they will lose billions and we will lose billions. And whether you're on the left of politics or the right, we're all pretty cynical, and we know that money talks. And money in this situation will talk. We will trade in a decent way with all of those European countries that want to trade with us. And what Juncker is saying, he's just afraid. He's afraid of the movement to the right. He's afraid of nationalism. He's afraid of countries wanting their sovereignty like we are going to get our sovereignty back.
Yep.
And whatever he says, it's irrelevant for me what he said. He's stupid, really, really stupid, and not very. And as everyone on the left of politics in the UK at the moment are criticising Theresa May, David Davis, Boris Johnson for so-called sort of arrogance, which I actually don't agree with. And all we're hearing from our EU partners are sort of these kind of dangerous jibes that Juncker is coming out with at the moment. They're the ones who are being aggressive and nasty. And I actually think the current government are actually being quite principled and honourable in comparison, and rightly so. And when we go into the negotiations, money will talk. The Germans will make money, the French will make money, we'll make money, and all the other European countries will make money, because they're all in the economic pit. They need trade, they need jobs,
so,
they
David,
need investment.
you're saying that in the end, common sense will out.
Of course. Money talks, Nigel. In every scenario in life, money talks. And we're talking billions here. We're not talking a few million. We're talking livelihoods, billions, jobs in France, Germany, and the other countries, jobs in the UK. All of the politicians will want to get a common sense, sensible deal so we can all make money. It's as simple as that.
David, I thank you, and a very strongly put view, and I appeal to those who think otherwise. I appeal to those who think, actually, no, the European Commission do rule the roost, and Mr. Juncker is indeed the king. Great quote, I thought, today from Tory MP Peter Bone from Wellingborough, who said, "It is like the dying words of the leader of an empire as it collapses," which sort of reminds me a little bit. Do you remember Comical Alley? There are no...
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Should mum be able to terminate a pregnancy due to the unborn child's gender? Professor Wendy Savage joins me now.
The words that I used in the hour-long interview have been taken out of context. I don't agree with gender selection, because what I also said is that this is not a problem in this country.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, making you welcome at over 40 hotels in Europe.
Are we live now? So.
Yeah. Right. Well, David in Putney's strongly of the view, David, was that actually common sense will out here, and there's not going to be a problem, and that Mr. Juncker simply doesn't matter. Well, I hope, David, it's as simple as that. I wonder what John in Henley-on-Thames thinks. I mean, John, he's being pretty arrogant with us, isn't he?
Yes, I agree. I mean, I believe, Nigel, and good evening, by the way, I think we should walk away from a poor deal. They have much more to lose than us. We will have new markets, and they will not. I just want a sensible deal for the UK.
John, I get that, and I get the logic of that. I guess the question is, at what point do we walk away if this is how they're going to behave?
If it is not good for the UK, as simple as that, and I leave it up to the experts to decide that. If it's not good for the UK, we should walk away. And then it's up to our businesses, which I have great faith in. British business and industry has got a lot going for it, and I believe we can do it.
Oh, John, I've got no doubt we can do it. Of course we can do it. And, you know, I'm here in the States, and I've been talking to a business audience today. They're absolutely up for Britain and America getting closer together in terms of trade and doing so as quickly as is possible. Absolutely. The question is, you know, if it's in the interests of German companies and French companies and Belgian companies for us to continue with our current trading relationships whilst Britain breaks the political link, who is going to talk some sense into Jean-Claude Juncker, John? That's the question.
No, he won't, because he has got blinkers on. There is no doubt that people like Juncker and other people in high positions in the EU are all wearing blinkers. And the blinkers are starting to fade, and it will take several more years before they fade more to make common sense.
John, I thank you very much for your thoughts and your opinions. One of the sticking points here with Juncker, of course, is he's going to slap on the table at the first negotiation a divorce bill for 50 billion sterling. Now, the UK government has taken advice from its lawyers, and there is absolutely, under the treaties, no obligation for us to pay a vast bill of that size. There may be some minor ongoing bills, but they're nothing like 50 billion. And I wonder, Marion in Brighton, what do you make of this?
Oh, it's Marlon. Sorry,
Marlon, I apologise.
That's all right, Nigel, don't worry. It says that on my UKIP membership name as well. They call me Marion.
Right.
What I was going to ask was that during the referendum campaign, how come we never saw Jean-Claude Juncker, Donald Tusk or Martin Schulz or anything ever coming on our TVs on any of the debates telling us why to stay in the European Union? Why was it always just our domestic politicians? And also, we would be, I look out my front window right now, okay? I tell you what I see, a Volkswagen, a Porsche, Renault, Citroen, there's an Audi there, there's a Fiat just coming down our road, and there's a Volvo over there. The point is, they're all European manufacturers, and surely it's in their interest far more, than us to them, because even if they did give us this 50 billion tariff, the bill as they want to give us, how much have we, paid since we joined as members? Surely it's actually, far more in their interest to give us a free trade deal than ours, because surely we could re-embrace the Commonwealth in America with Donald Trump in, who actually likes Britain.
Marlon, absolutely. There are countries queuing up all over the world to do a deal with us. We voted to leave political union. And one soundbite that the Prime Minister is using that is right is we're leaving the European Union, we're not leaving Europe. Of course we're not. But he really is acting against everyone's interests in making the comments that he's making. He does look like a man who's desperate. It's a bit like saying, if you escape from the prison and you're caught, we'll shoot you.
Update from Nigel. What happened?
Hello, well, it's not the CIA. It's nothing to do with Julian Assange or anybody. It's just a technical problem, I'm afraid, which has happened, which is a pity, because it is a really big, exciting subject. And I know you're doing an absolute mass of calls, but I think the first few calls that I took, Clive, people were coming through with really common sense ideas, namely that actually what Juncker says in the end won't matter, because in the end it's in the interest of governments across Europe to have a sensible deal with Britain, and it's certainly in the interest of those car companies and wine producers and chocolate makers, and I think, should we respond to Juncker by sort of sticking two fingers up and walking away? Well, I think the answer is not yet. I think we need to play a really clever diplomatic game with the other countries of Europe, and we need to go out and we need to really push hard with German car manufacturers, French wine producers, and all the rest of it to put maximum pressure on real politicians, elected politicians around Europe, to say, let's have a good deal. And I think that Juncker, the European Commission, Mr. Verhofstadt, and all these people, frankly, I think through the Brexit process, in the end, they're going to be irrelevant.
So would you say then that you've got to have that possibility of walking away, but you would still hope that there'd be a deal in the offing?
Yeah, the point is we don't walk away yet. We don't just knee-jerk react to Juncker behaving like this. We try and show that actually we're the ones talking plain common sense. We need to appeal to the other governments. I even think we almost need an advertising campaign in France and Germany particularly, through the media and everything else, to say, come on, tell your politicians to grow up. Millions of your jobs depend on trade with the United Kingdom. And I think that's the game that we should play. If it does prove impossible, if we do have to walk away ultimately, well, do you know what? For us, no deal is still better than the rotten current deal that we've got. But I think there's real hope now out of this, because I genuinely see European industry waking up and saying, come on, let's be sensible.
And can I just ask you, we did have a call, which you probably didn't hear, who accused you of kind of hoodwinking people in the campaign for Brexit, mentioned the 350 million on the bus. What's your stance on that?
Oh, well, that was a silly figure. They should have used the net 220 million a week, and that would have been factually correct, and still would have been big enough to shock everybody. Look, the point is we've been lied to for half a century by those supporting the European project. Promises that it was only a common market, and then it turned into a political union. Things get said during campaigns, but far from hoodwinking people, already a big, bright new world outside of Europe is opening up to us. And whilst, the last embers of this dying empire are being stoked by Mr. Juncker today, longer term, the EU can't survive as it is. And I just think if we play this game cleverly, we may well get a very good deal.
And what about George Osborne? I know you're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Where do you stand on that one?
Well, obviously, Osborne becoming editor of the Evening Standard is a big shock to everybody. Particularly given his stance on Leveson and controls on the press. But, part of that emergency debate today on Osborne, and I'm not defending Osborne at all, but he made a point that actually people in Parliament, people in politics, having a foot in the outside world, in the real world, enriches debate and politics. And on that general point, I have to say I agree. The opposite to that is you have a totally career professional political class who all go straight from university into politics, have no outside interests at all. And yeah, sure, they might work 7 days a week and all the hours God sends, but you need people connected to business and the real world. And that general point, I think, is a very strong one.
And of course, the big news today really is Article 50. We've now got an actual date. Is this a real landmark for you?
Oh, look, I think, I'm pleased I didn't hold my breath after the referendum. It's been more than 9 months. But next Wednesday, it happens, and it's a massive, historic moment. We will have passed the point of no return. After next Wednesday, be in no doubt, we are leaving. There'll be lots of haggles, lots of debate over what the nature of the deal is over the course of the next couple of years. But after next Wednesday, we are leaving. It is a big, big day. In many ways, one of the biggest days in our history.
So 2 years on from next Wednesday, Will we actually be out? Because quite a lot of people are tweeting and texting saying, oh, I've got my doubts. Can't believe it.
Well, we'll be out, I'm sure of that. As to whether we get a good deal, as to whether we've got back as much control as is available to us, remains the question. I mean, I've been very unhappy that they don't even appear to want, for example, to get back our fishing waters. There's even been talk of transitional arrangements, delaying, and continuing the free movement of people for years. I don't know. All I do know is this, that if in 2 years' time we have not got a satisfactory Brexit, and that's satisfactory not just for the 17.5 million that voted Brexit, but for many millions more who now today think that it is now the right thing for us to do. If there is no satisfactory Brexit, then I think you will see a very, very angry British public, and it could be the subject that dominates the next general election. I mean, the whole thing is in the hands of this government and this Prime Minister, and what we've got to do is try, those of us that believe in Brexit, is to keep the pressure on. But I think after next Wednesday, really, in terms of the big picture, there's no going back.
OK, Nigel Farage, there we are.